Hosted by Shawn Ryan, featuring national security expert Simone Ledeen, this episode is a masterclass in how America accidentally helped build the very threats it now faces. From the rise of Iran's terror empire to the intelligence failures that cost lives, this conversation exposes what most of us were never told. In a world reshaped by failed wars, broken trust, and power games, these 10 takeaways will change how you see America's role in the Middle East and beyond. Takeaway 1. How America built Iran's terror empire. Simone Ledeen reveals a truth that few Americans fully understand. The United States did not just fight terror groups in the Middle East. In many cases, it unintentionally helped create them. After the invasion of Iraq, the U.S. government tried to rebuild Iraqi institutions by handing out money, power, and weapons to local leaders. But many of those leaders were secretly aligned with Iran. Instead of building a pro-Western government, we ended up funding Iran's allies inside Iraq. Some of those groups became powerful militias that now answer to Tehran, not Baghdad. Simone points out that while U.S. soldiers were dying on the battlefield, Iranian-backed forces were getting stronger, using resources we helped deliver. This includes vehicles, cash, even direct access to ministries. She also explains how Iran used the chaos to place their agents in key positions. One example she gives is Ahmed Chalabi, a man once trusted by U.S. officials, who turned out to be more loyal to Iran. When you add in America's failure to challenge Iran's influence early on, it becomes clear that we helped shape the empire we now fear. As Simone says, Iran didn't have to beat us in battle. We opened the door and invited them in. Takeaway 2. How bad actors use chaos. Chaos is not just a byproduct of war. In the Middle East, it is often the goal. Simone explains that groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Iranian regime thrive in disorder. They embed themselves inside civilian areas, provoke attacks, and then use the images of destruction to win sympathy worldwide. For example, when Israel strikes back after being attacked, the world sees only the civilian deaths. This leads to condemnation of Israel, while the real instigators get away with murder. Literally. Iran uses this tactic everywhere, from Gaza to Syria. Simone compares it to a school bully who starts a fight and hides behind smaller kids, knowing the teacher will punish the wrong person. The tragedy is that innocent people suffer, while the power players profit. She also points out that Western media and even some international aid groups fall for this trap, blaming the responders instead of the provocateurs. The more unstable a region becomes, the easier it is for Iran and its proxies to tighten their grip. In a strange twist, peace is bad for their business. That is why they work so hard to keep the fire burning. Takeaway 3. Iraq was never our ally. When America invaded Iraq in 2003, many hoped it would become a stable democracy and a partner in the region. That never happened. Simone was on the ground during the early years of the war, and what she saw was not hope, but betrayal. The Iraqi government was filled with corruption. Ministries were being run by people more interested in power than progress. Many of them had deep ties to Iran. Simone describes how U.S. money and training went to security forces that were loyal not to Iraq, but to sectarian militias. These groups would later fight American soldiers and attack civilians. She remembers sitting in meetings with Iraqi officials who begged for help, while secretly undermining U.S. goals. Even the man in charge of the finance ministry once told her he feared for his life because of pressure from Iranian-backed groups. Simone compares it to building a house on quicksand. No matter how well-intentioned the plan, the foundation was never stable, and the U.S. leadership ignored all the warning signs. We're about to dive into the most exciting part of this video. If you're enjoying it, hit the thumbs up below and share this video in your WhatsApp groups. It really helps us keep making great content. Don't forget to leave a comment and hit subscribe for more. Now let's continue with the video. Takeaway 4. Intelligence agencies have failed. Most people assume the U.S. intelligence community is all-seeing and all-knowing. Simone says that is far from the truth. She explains that critical facts are often left out of reports, if they do not align with the political narrative. For example, during the early years of the War on Terror, analysts were not even allowed to say that al-Qaeda leadership was hiding in Iran. Why? Because admitting that might have forced the U.S. to confront Iran directly, which no administration wanted to do. Simone also shares that some analysts who told the truth were fired or silenced. The culture rewarded those who stayed in line, not those who challenged flawed assumptions. This meant that senior leaders were often making decisions based on incomplete or misleading information. In one case, she saw high-level assessments change completely in just a few months, not because the facts changed, but because the politics did. It was not just a failure of analysis, it was a failure of courage. Takeaway 5. Critical thinking is punished. Simone explains that one of the biggest threats to national security is not outside enemies, but internal groupthink. Young analysts are trained in schools where questioning the mainstream view is discouraged. They come into government with impressive degrees, but little ability to challenge flawed ideas. Simone says this problem is especially bad in intelligence work, where analysts are supposed to consider every angle. Instead, many simply echo what their bosses want to hear. She shares stories of brilliant thinkers being sidelined for offering unpopular opinions, and of reports being edited to remove anything that might upset leadership. It is like a doctor refusing to diagnose a disease because the hospital does not want bad news. The result is a system that looks busy, but produces bad decisions. Simone argues that until critical thinking is rewarded instead of punished, these failures will repeat again and again. Takeaway 6. Money networks fund terrorists. Most people think terrorism is funded by drugs or secret cash in the desert. Simone says the truth is more complex and far more dangerous. Groups like Hezbollah and the Taliban use formal banking systems, charities, and even crypto to move money around the world. One method is the Hawala system, which works like a trust-based network where no money physically moves, but debts are settled across borders using code words and personal relationships. Simone explains that during her time at the Treasury and the Department of Defense, she saw money trails that connected local smugglers to global financial institutions. In some cases, these networks were allowed to continue, because disrupting them would cause political problems or reveal embarrassing links to supposed allies. She says stopping the flow of money is just as important as winning battles. You can kill a fighter, but if the funding continues, another will take his place. Takeaway 7. Afghanistan was never stable. Even during the height of U.S. involvement, Afghanistan was never truly under control. Simone explains that corruption was everywhere. Leaders would take foreign aid, fake a few reports, and pocket the rest. U.S. officials often looked the other way because they wanted to show success on paper. In some cases, soldiers were paid to show up only during inspections. The rest of the time, they stayed home or joined the Taliban. Simone says the banking and economic systems we tried to build were often useless in a country where most people still used cash or relied on tribal trust systems. She compares it to installing a smartphone app in a village with no electricity. It made no sense, but it looked good in a press release. She saw how locals pretended to cooperate while quietly working with insurgents. The truth is that many Afghans never trusted the central government, and without that trust, nothing lasting could be built. Takeaway 8. Leaving Afghanistan was chaos. Simone gives a behind-the-scenes look at how the U.S. left Afghanistan, and it is nothing short of heartbreaking. Plans changed by the hour. People on the ground were left guessing. Allies who had worked with American forces for years were suddenly abandoned. Simone was in touch with many people trying to escape, and she describes the fear, the confusion, and the betrayal they felt. Families were separated, promises were broken. The Taliban took over not just territory, but the narrative. They looked strong while the U.S. looked weak. Simone says that even now, many of the people responsible for that disaster have faced no consequences. Instead, they moved on to new jobs, leaving behind a legacy of failure. The message sent to the world was clear. America may be powerful, but it cannot be trusted. We're about to hit the final takeaways from this video. If you're enjoying it, hit the thumbs up below and share this video in your WhatsApp groups. It really helps us keep making great content. Don't forget to leave a comment and hit subscribe for more. Now, let's continue with the video. Takeaway 9. Post-government work matters. After leaving official government roles, Simone did not walk away from the mission. Instead, she moved into the private sector to keep fighting the same battles in new ways. She helped banks in the UAE build stronger systems to detect financial crimes. She also worked with technology companies to improve defense capabilities, especially in areas like cybersecurity. Simone believes that the future of national security depends on public-private partnerships. Governments move too slowly. Private companies can innovate, but they need guidance. She sees her role as a bridge between these two worlds. She also teaches and mentors the next generation of leaders, showing them how to avoid the mistakes of the past. Her work proves that national service does not end with a title. It continues in every choice you make. Takeaway 10. No lessons means repeat. In the end, Simone leaves us with a warning. America has made huge mistakes in the Middle East, and if we do not learn from them, we will make them again. She reflects on the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan not as isolated failures, but as symptoms of a deeper problem. We reward loyalty over truth. We ignore the inconvenient. We chase short-term wins and pay long-term costs. Simone shares the story of friends who came home from war, broken, confused, and betrayed. Some did not survive. Others live with the weight of what they saw and what they were asked to do. The least we can do, she says, is to be honest about what went wrong. Without that honesty, the next disaster is not a question of if, but when. This is not just a story about foreign policy. It is a story about how power, pride, and politics can blind a nation. Simone Ledeen's insights reveal the high price of arrogance and the even higher cost of ignorance. We built Iran's terror empire not because we wanted to, but because we refused to see what was right in front of us. If this episode made you question what you thought you knew, then it did its job. Now the real question is this: what will we do differently next time? Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support this channel, hit the thanks button below. It really helps us keep going. If you enjoyed this summary, please leave a like and share it in your WhatsApp groups. To join discussion about this video, drop a comment below. And for more videos like this, hit the subscribe button below.